Hey kids, and welcome back to Awesome Oceans, the show that takes you out of the classroom and face-to-face with creatures under the sea. This is the show where we look at everything from stealthy sharks to giant squid. This week we're on location at Fin Addicts, tropical marine fish, ponds, and reptiles at 840 Gardner's Road. I'm your host Sam, and with me as always is Sherilyn Kennedy, marine biologist and underwater explorer. What can you tell us about what we're doing this week, Sherilyn?
All right, so today we're going to be learning about the amazing color-changing abilities of cuttlefish and octopus. We'll also be looking at the adaptations of animals who live in the deepest parts of the ocean. And finally, we'll be learning about two ecosystems at the bottom of the ocean that require no sunlight for their existence.
Awesome. What are the keywords for today?
All right, so today we have 4 keywords. They are tentacle, camouflage, adaptation, and pressure.
Well, let's get right into it, Sherilyn. What does cephalopods actually mean?
Cephalopod is a Latin word meaning head, foot. Cephala means head, pod means foot. And what this means is animals in this family, which include nautilus, squid, octopus, and cuttlefish, move in the water using their head.
So they will walk on their head?
So they don't walk with their head, but they do use their head to move around in the water. So how they do this is they fill their body with water, and then they force it through their funnel, like jet propulsion, which makes them move in the opposite direction as what they're bringing the water in from.
So it's action-reaction.
Action and reaction, yes, exactly. So we have a little demonstration for you. If you fill a balloon up with air, but don't let it pop, and then you let it go, the balloon will move in the opposite direction as where the air is coming out of. And this is very similar to what a squid does under the water. So let's give it a try.
So the action is the air coming out of the bottom of the balloon.
Yes.
And the reaction is?
The balloon moving in the opposite direction. So the squid or octopus will funnel the water one direction, and they will move in the opposite direction. This is a very efficient way of getting around under the water.
So that's kind of like a jet ski.
Exactly, like a jet ski or like an airplane. Some airplanes use jet propulsion as well.
Scientists take a lot of their ideas from animals.
Yes, they do. So an interesting thing to note is that a lot of scientists and inventors look to animals to get their really good ideas. So for jet propulsion.
Torpedo shape.
Torpedo shape, yeah, exactly.
Okay. So do they use their arms to swim?
They don't use their arms to swim. Cephalopods do have many arms and tentacles, but they don't use them to swim. They use this jet propulsion to swim. It's a lot better way of moving around underwater. They do use their arms sometimes to walk on the bottom of the ocean, but it's not a very fast way of moving, so they'll only do this if they're sort of playing around. They won't use this when they're hunting or when they're trying to escape predators.
Earlier you mentioned that there were 4 types of cephalopods. You want to go through those again for us?
Sure, yeah. So the 4 types of cephalopods are nautilus, cuttlefish, squid, and octopus.
Okay. So in our introduction to the show, I mentioned gigantic squid. How big do these cephalopods actually get?
Well, cephalopods are a huge group of very diverse animals when it comes to size. They can be as small as 2 to 3 centimeters for cuttlefish and as big as 13 meters, weighing over 1,000 pounds for the colossal squid.
So it's kind of like a school eraser and all the way up to like a small car, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So they can be very, very small and very, very big.
So what do cephalopods look like?
Well, we'll talk about the 4 types of cephalopods separately. So squids are typically torpedo-shaped, and you can look at this. We have an example here as a squid, and you can see that it has a long body. Cuttlefish are very similar in shape, but not in size. So they're usually a little bit smaller, and they're more round, so they're less long than squid. We also have nautilus, and this is a nautilus shell here. So the nautilus is the only cephalopod that lives in a shell. This is a chambered nautilus, and this is the shell here, and you can see that there's a spiral within the shell, and there's all different kinds of chambers. And the nautilus, the animal itself, only lives in the last chamber of its shell, and it just keeps producing more and more shell as it grows. So it's a little bit different than the rest of the cephalopods, that it has a shell and it has sort of a different shape.
What about the octopus?
So an octopus has 8 arms and a big round head, but an octopus is also able to change shapes. They're really good at shape shifting as well as color changing. They have great adaptations for camouflaging into their surroundings.
Camouflage is one of your words of the day, isn't it, Sherilyn?
Yes, camouflage is one of our key words, and it means to fit into your environment, to blend into the background. And octopus are able to do this by changing their colors to match the corals that they're living on, or to change the shape and size of their body so they can look like a ray or snakes. They can hide themselves into a hole and then put their tentacles out and look like snakes.
Kind of like what hunters do, I suppose, by wearing hats and things that
Yeah, that's
the
right.
environment they're in.
Yeah, so we have camouflage hats for hunters when they're hunting in the woods. They want to blend in with their environment and not startle the animals that they're hunting. So they have similar color patterns as their matching environment and the patterns as well.
So, Sherilyn, where can we find these cephalopods? Where do they live?
Well, they're also really diverse with their geographical distribution. So they can live in the very cold oceans of the poles, the warm oceans of the tropics, and they can also live at the surface of the ocean and at the very deepest parts of the ocean.
Whoa.
So they can live in a huge variety of places.
It sounds like their diet must be varied as well.
Yes, that's true. So because they can live in all these different areas, they have varied diets. So they can eat other fish, crustaceans, worms, and also other cephalopods. A bigger one can eat a smaller one. And it's also been found that large squid can eat small sharks.
Wow.
Which is very interesting.
So how do they eat the things that they catch? And actually, how do they catch the things that they eat?
Well, octopus and squid and cephalopods, they all have a beak in their mouth. It's just like a bird's beak, and it's a very hard structure, and they can use that to grind up the food that they catch. And they also have these arms and tentacles that have suction cups on them. They have little suction cups all over their arms and tentacles, and in each of those suction cups, there's little teeth, as well as sometimes they have little hooks. And so they can use that like a Velcro to grab onto their prey and reel it in, and then they use their really strong beak to crush them up and take big chunks and bites out of those.